camera's live. And cool.
Hey guys. Oh, here we go.
There you go. Hey.
Hey, what's up, Dave? Awesome. Wow, this is a twofer.
I just want to say hi because I was walking by the conference room and I could see your faces on the screen.
Awesomeness, man. Thanks for coming
Excellent.
by. Excellent show tonight. Really had a blast when you went over to Wayne Manor. I'm like, yeah, Loris.
Holy shit, Tenma! I wouldn't have recognized you.
Heck yeah.
You guys are twins.
I,
Cutting your hair
told
off.
you, if you're gonna go, you got to go all the way, Dave. You know, it's all or nothing.
Just go for it. Nah, man. I like your new look, Dave. It looks really good.
Thanks, I like it too. Hey,
Yeah.
George,
Yeah, Dave.
what's your in-game name? I was totally spacing on it on the show.
Gaius Maximus.
God, I knew that. Shit. Sorry about that. All I can remember was your Twitter handle, and I was like, this is not helping.
No worries, man. Black Beauty. You got to go see Black Beauty. It's made by Giuliana, right at the Spires at Adventure Cave.
Cool. I'll look for it.
Hey,
Excellent.
Dave.
I'm totally interrupting.
Oh, no. We're just getting set up.
For,
Hey,
oh,
Dave.
Yeah, just getting set up.
God damn, you guys are good stuff. There's so much good stuff in the game right now.
Oh, my God.
The
This,
Karen stuff is ridiculous.
yeah, and the ogre stuff is coming together like you would not believe.
I know.
I
Actually,
can't believe how fast it's coming together.
Seriously, like, it seems like each iteration, people lock in on style rapidly. They start iterating more rapidly than the previous time. It's really gratifying.
the joke we say all the time internally is we're gonna have to do the Dark Elf contest again.
Yes. Yes.
We have so much more power now with the new line tool and everything. We have to go back and revisit that.
People learn so much.
Definitely. And Tima's spikes. I mean, we didn't have those spikes during the Dark Elf.
I'm still
need those.
crying because ogres don't have spikes, man. What's up with that?
Spikes, they have ribbons.
They have studs, right?
Yeah.
They have studs.
Yeah.
Because they're studs, you know.
Very short spikes.
I'm compromising. I made them short.
Those are back scratchers.
Yeah.
About that stuff today, keep obviously you can listen to what we have to say, or you can continue to do whatever it is that you want to do. I mean, if ultimately a person plans to influence the style guide and to have the style guide change, the only way to do that is to put an idea out there, continue to iterate on it, and to display it, and to make it look cool in a way that, we look across the conference room toward one another and say, I don't think we can exclude that look from the style guide because it is too damn cool,
Yeah, it's cool.
right? I mean,
That happened a lot with the Dark Elf.
it absolutely happens a lot with the Dark Elves. I can tell you that there are certain things that when we see them, we think that they go to other races. And like the ziggurat is one thing that a couple people have incorporated into ogre builds that will most certainly be reserved more for the Ixar.
For sure.
So taking an ogre building and building it like a ziggurat with like a big bottom and then a smaller middle and then an even smaller top, in general, that's going to be reserved for the Ixar. So that we would want to shy away from. And it would be difficult to convince us from a stylistic point to shy away from that. But other things, as long as it's not prescribed for another race, I encourage people to push those styles.
Yeah, it's cool. Well, I just wanted to say hi.
Thanks a lot for stopping by. I really appreciate it.
My pile of email, which I'm sure has accumulated since I've been away from the desk. I'll talk to you later.
Talk to
Hey,
you
that
soon.
looks good, dude.
Thanks.
All right, Tema, can you lower your mic just a tad? You're outbound there. I'm just trying to get this set up, guys, so bear with me just for a moment. Really appreciate you standing by. Let's see here. Let's get you, George. All right, we're going to be kicking this off in just a moment, guys. Appreciate you for coming in. If you haven't tweeted it out, I would really appreciate if you would tweet out that we're doing this live show with Jeff Butler, creative director at SOE. And this is a good opportunity for all you guys out in Landmark to have your questions answered, be part of the discussion here. And I just need to scale you down a little bit, Tema. I'm using OBS. I love it for streaming. It's very powerful, but it's definitely can be a little bit difficult to use sometimes. And now I just need to get me in here and we will be good to go. Uh-oh, I think you're going to need to turn it up just a little bit. Having trouble hearing you now, Temma. Sorry about that.
All right, how about now?
A little bit lower. I'm not messing with you. Sorry.
How about now?
Okay, good. Perfect. Perfect. And George, could you say something?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, awesome. You guys sound great. All right, fantastic. Let's get this thing going. My name is Cody. Welcome to the stream. Really appreciate, again, everyone for being here. This is Landmark Weekly, episode number 1. And tonight, we have a huge show. We have, of course, the creative director for Landmark, Jeff Butler. And I want to introduce our panel here. We have the leader of literally the largest guild in Landmark. I knew you'd like that. A huge Landmark Twitch streamer, creator of Temma's tutorials. Everybody should be following this dude, Temma. So thank you so much for being here, Temma. As always, you are the man. And you know him from Twitter and host of The Morning Brew. He always wakes up on the right side of the bed. Geo at Landmark Explorer. Thank you for being here, Geo. Really appreciate that.
Hey, good to be here, man.
And then
I'm still wondering what he's got in that coffee.
a little, it's probably got a little something, a little juice, a little something to get him going. So, and you know what? Our 5th guest, which I didn't mention previously, is actually you guys, the Landmark community, because honestly, from the heart, none of this would be possible without you guys. I think everyone here, including Jeff, would agree with that. And I've been a gamer my entire life, and I have never experienced a group of people as diverse, as creative, and as positive as the Landmark community. So it's really special to have you guys here and chat with me. Thank you so much for joining me. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. So get ready, grab your drinks, get some popcorn, and here we go. So first off, I want to say, what is Landmark Weekly? What's this show all about? And I think the first thing to anyone that might be new to Landmark is to maybe tell you what Landmark is. So Landmark's a sandbox MMO built in a voxel engine, and what it will allow is players to create their own multiplayer content. So it's a very straightforward goal. It's a very broad and challenging goal, but I think the SOE team is up for the task, and they have shown and proven themselves to work with the community like Jeff is here today, bringing us into the design process, and I'm super excited. And this show particularly is about connecting you guys with the dev team. So we're going to be analyzing the new updates on every other week because they have changed to a every other week schedule for the updates. And so we're going to be analyzing those on weeks, and then on the off weeks we're going to be doing interviews with figureheads and devs like Jeff Butler here. So I hope if this is something you're interested in, you follow the channel. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday right after the Landmark Live show. And obviously, we have Tenma, massive community figurehead, and George here, always ready to give excellent feedback. And then we also want to promote outstanding community members because I know that I feel that you guys don't get enough credit that you deserve. And like they mentioned on the Landmark Live today, some people are a little bit shy. Some people aren't as outgoing as other people, so they don't get their work noticed. And I think this show is a really good opportunity to help some of those members get out where they need to be in the spotlight. Okay, so now before we jump right into the panel, I want to encourage you guys in chat right now to go ahead and ask questions. Corinne, my lovely mod, who I've called the Heart of Colossus, amazing woman, is going to be taking a look at your questions, posting them in TeamSpeak for me, so we can, at the end of the show, do a nice QA for Jeff Butler. So if you want those questions answered, make sure to type those in, and yeah, I would really appreciate that. And also, we're going to be doing a quick poll, which I'm going to be doing a little bit later in the show, so get ready for that as well. All right, so Jeff, thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. So let's get right into it. I have a whole list of questions. Whatever you're up for answering, you let me know. If you want to skip something, that's totally fine with me. So,
I mean,
yep.
I'll try to give you my best answer on everything that you throw my way. There may be some things, obviously, that we have to defer on because we maybe not know the specific answer, but I don't have the list of questions, so.
Okay. Yeah. Let's just go for it. All right. Well, the first question is pretty easy. To make sure people in chat are asking the right questions to you, Jeff, can you tell us what is your role as Landmark Creative Director and walk us through some of your key responsibilities?
So ultimately, I'd say I'm responsible for, if you think about a game as something that goes into a box or a finished product, I'm responsible for it being fun, right? And because we're an existing franchise, in this case, EverQuest, also responsible for it being recognizable and a successful iteration on the EverQuest franchise in general, right? So it should, in some ways, be true to the original EverQuest, either in execution or as EverQuest was a reimagining of elements of Dungeons and Dragons and Lord of the Rings. So there should be a faithful reimagining of either elements of EverQuest or really whatever else we think is important to bring new to the genre.
Okay. And can you talk about how releasing this game very early in the development process has affected you and your team? And what are some of the hurdles that you maybe didn't anticipate that had popped up for you?
Well, I think because we've done things along these lines a few times before, we've been lucky in that there haven't been any hurdles that we didn't anticipate. We have encountered hurdles, but they were things that we knew that we would face. One example of that is we're in the basically in the guts of developing the game on a week-to-week basis, right? And the game in an alpha state, to add to the alpha development actual live maintenance where we were patching once every week. And that was a speed bump that we knew we were going to face, but there are challenges there, right? To both maintain a code base and to iterate rapidly upon it while it's live is very challenging. People have been really patient with us. We've had some rough patches there. I'm sure you guys remember a few times where the servers were supposed to come up on a Thursday morning, and you didn't see us until 3 o'clock in the morning on Friday, because we had a trouble with the build. Those are some of the hurdles that we've experienced.
Okay, and so does Landmark have a game rating yet, and how could that impact content creators in Landmark, particularly in the future?
So the intended rating, the ESRB rating, is I'm sure what you're asking about,
Right.
should be teen, right?
Okay.
And it's teen with the caveat that online interaction isn't really encompassed in that rating. Just like any online game, like when you log into Halo, you may hear in chat in Halo foul language, right? The teen rating doesn't take that into account. So you have that caveat there. Online interactions are not included. And I think in general, it's the same sort of thing you will expect from Landmark. It's theoretically possible that somebody would create something in geometry that would be objectionable. And prior to customer service being able to remove it from the game, however long that would take, you may witness that objectionable object when you come into the game, in exactly the same way as you might hear objectionable language when you start playing Halo.
I got one. To kind of add on that, are they planning to have the turn on option for, say, blood for combat? Like in the options or something that we can somehow kind of keep away from kids of some sort?
It's a possibility. I mean, some amount of gore in combat isn't undesirable, right? Some of it doesn't cross the line into a mature rating. So anything that works within a teen rating is fine for us, and you might expect to see.
Okay.
That should be kind of cool.
So let me ask you, with issues like the extended grappling hook going unnoticed by the dev team for weeks, do you think that do you think changing your initial stance about no devs cheating on the live servers could be revisited?
Um, it's an interesting question. I think in general, more testing and more communication with you guys will really be the secret, right? There are people on the dev team. Like I still have on my GM character my primal grappling hook, right?
Mhm.
So it's in our case just a matter of whatever it was we were doing during that period of time that caused us to miss it. Better communication with you guys is probably the key.
Is
It's
that Terry? Is that Terry trolling you?
probably.
What's up, Terry?
Terry. Oi.
Good to see you.
Proof that we actually work in the same place.
Yes.
I was just in the other building and then doing our live stream, and then I walked out. I had to deal with some stuff and then came over. I thought I'd pop in and say hello.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much, man, for coming by. This has been an epic stream already. 3 of the top dogs in here. Awesome.
You guys can probably see a bunch of people walking past the glass.
I'm walking. No, you can't see anything back there. Don't give anything away.
Next time we interview, I'll turn the camera toward the glass so that everyone who walks by can say hi.
Yeah.
Wave.
Excellent.
Oh, that's
Excellent.
awesome.
I just want to say hi, guys.
Cheers,
Take it
Terry.
easy, Terry.
Thanks for stopping by, Terry. Really cool.
Yep.
All right, so let me ask you. Landmark is such an incredibly economically, culturally, and geographically diverse game. Can you talk about some of the ways your team has been able to adapt to such a broad player base?
So, because previous MMOs have been pretty unique in terms of how many people they've brought from all around the world. I mean, at one point in time, we had a list of the number of people who were playing EverQuest from countries within Africa, for instance, and the number was quite surprising. Even back in the day, back when you might have assumed that bandwidth was hard to come by in certain other countries. Because of that, we were pretty used to and expected a very broad and diverse cultural foundation for the game, and we were really hoping for that, right? We were trying to make a game that would appeal to as many cultures as humanly possible. Basically, a game that's culturally agnostic, if you will. And we're super happy that people from all over the world have decided to join us. You know, hopefully that trend continues as the game becomes more complete, as we reach a finish state.
Okay, awesome. So it sounds like you have a lot of experience with it in the past, so you're...
It was our plan, right?
Yeah.
When you think about it in terms of the broadest picture that we were trying to paint with the game, that was certainly hugely important for us.
Awesome.
I've noticed that I really can't check it through Twitch, but I know I can check it through YouTube. Through my analytics and stuff like that, I can find out where people are coming in to watch the tutorials from, and I've actually seen quite a few from the Asian countries, Thailand, Japan, even some in China, and I've noticed I can kind of watch that, and it kind of gives me a good baseline of where the actual game is actually touching around the world right now, and it's looking pretty good actually.
The desire is anyone who is creative, right? Right now, the creative part of the game is what's generally been exposed to players, and as the core gameplay loop wraps up, as we have player versus environment, as we have exploration, and the ability to create content that's associated with player versus environment. Once all those factors of creativity and gameplay come together, I'm hoping that trend will expand greatly.
Sweet.
Excellent. Wow, very cool. So this morning I got a chance to talk with all the LaForge members, and they're an exemplary team of builders. I have to. I mean, everyone I talk to is just blown away by them, and I'm personally blown away, especially with Anzul sharing that amazing ogre build. I was incredibly impressed by that. Such in an early stage of the competition. The competition hasn't even started, as you know, Jeff.
Yep.
And I would like to share some of the things that we talked about and kind of get your response from that. So,
Oh, I'd be happy to talk. I'd be happy to talk about that stuff.
cool, excellent. So, the main thing that they're looking for is claim flying. That's super important to them right now. They want more claims for the ogre competition. They feel like they're a little bit boxed in, and I think a lot of the community feels that way.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. The ability to move claims after you place them, which I thought was a request, but really, the time it takes to pick up a claim, replace it, rename it, it is very time consuming. So that,
Hey, wake up.
It
you
is.
know, I was surprised that that was.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected it to be on their hot list. I know that things like flying on a claim, which I've talked to them about as well, because when I've come a lot of times to review claims, I fly around, and I strongly acknowledge that the need to be able to move that way on your own claim for building purposes is just huge.
Yep. And one of their requests was better prizes for the competition. So, hey, if it keeps them building, I mean, they're amazing. And
I just spoke to Rosie today about what we would like to see the competitions become in the future, and how. I mean, when you think about it in terms of building a game, ultimately, as designers, we want to create an entertainment loop where people are incentivized to push their creativity, to make amazing builds, stuff that is successful for the game itself in terms of content. Incentivizing people and rewarding them for doing that is part of the gameplay loop, right? If we don't have that aspect, then it's really just an application at that point, like Maya or SketchUp. You can do something cool and you can post it on renderosity.com and people can give you a thumbs up. That's not a lot of incentive.
I got two questions from the chat right here, so we don't go too far before we get to this one. Tal Lurker asked, bug trackers, better tracking of known bugs in the game.
So I'm not the bug person. That's Eric Smith. And I know that Tal Lurker has had some interaction with Eric. It's fairly easy to reach us with those communications, both posting on the boards and actually filling out the bug reports. I mean, I can tell you, I look at the bug tracking mechanism on a daily basis, and I do my utmost to make sure when I discover a bug or somebody communicates one to me that goes directly to Eric. And usually when I walk over there and tell him, hey, dude, are you aware XYZ isn't working? He's like, yeah, I'm on top of it. I know exactly what's going on. And the fix is scheduled for this day. So be communicative. That's what I would say. Use those channels that are there right now. They're working.
Okay, and the other one I have here is from Caledonian. Will there be a language translator for in-game?
I don't believe that there will be an in-game language translator.
I know games like Final Fantasy 11 and I think 14 also has something it's like a generic, like help, join party, that sort of thing. And I didn't know if there was any plans for having that in not only Landmark but maybe in Next at some point. Like
we have a long, basically an exhaustive list of features that we'd like to see. Those things are on there, but they're in the distant future. We have considerations for this game that are very technically ambitious, as you guys are aware, and those are at this point in time the stuff that we're really focused on, right? Okay. Proving out the ability to create a voxel engine and tool that can be put in the hands of a layman, where they can self-tutor themselves to the point where they can build a structure, and then at some point in time in the future where they can create content for that structure by placing NPCs in the world and things of that nature, all in a balanced and enjoyable way, and then surfacing that content to players. Those technical challenges are going to be what we focus on in the upcoming future.
And
okay.
I think Dave said they're shooting for that by the end of the year, that gameplay loop that you're talking about. So it's coming soon, guys, and I'm excited for it. Sorry about that, George.
Oh, that's okay. I was going to say, Jeff, 2 words, man. Voxel Forge,
Yes.
We talked at the show, man. That was the first thing that came out of your mouth was Voxel Forge. We got this idea we're kicking around, and that's all I've been able to think about since,
They're
since the
working
show.
on it right now.
That is
Yeah,
awesome.
I would like to say that everybody that's in chat right now, try to keep it down to a development type questions, if at all possible.
Yeah, not about Felgon banning you in
Design.
chat.
Design.
We don't need to hear that stuff.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
It's not that I can't answer some other non-design related
Yeah.
question, but I think you guys will get the most out of your time with me if we stick to the kind of the big picture design ideas.
definitely. And I just want to note real quick, when I talked to LaForge, they're very fond of I think it's Terror. Is that that's the French community manager who's visited them in their Mumble teams, their Mumble chat channel, and I thought that was really cool. They felt very connected, and they felt like they could give direct feedback. And is that something that we might see on the U.S. end?
I think so. Yes. I try to come out as often as I can and hang out in your guys' streams. I generally unfortunately I wasn't there today, but when they're live streaming the Landmark update on Wednesday afternoon, I try to hang out in chat and answer people's questions. What it all boils down to is, while we're very familiar with interacting with our players in general, both from a customer service standpoint and a developer standpoint, in this game, this is really a new animal, right? We're going to have heretofore unprecedented levels of involvement with the customers, right? Because ultimately we're creating a new kind of game, and that game, the ability to create a game is being put and placed into the hands of players themselves. That's something that hasn't been done before. We're going to need to find ways to communicate with you guys that go beyond the normal level of communication that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and I think you're proving it right now by coming on, talking with us, answering all our questions. And I didn't send Jeff any of this stuff. He's just answering on the fly. So
let me challenge him. I got a question for you, Jeff.
Sure.
We have Landmark Explorer. We're part of Gladiators Group. We're in talks right now with an author who's got 6 books he's published, and we're talking to him about bringing his next story not just as a novel, but as a interactive game to Landmark.
This is exactly the sort of approach, among many different approaches, that I would expect people would eventually take in Landmark and EQ Next. When you think about the creation of content, right? Think about all of the different things that you would see on the resume or on a job posting for game designers across the industry. There are people who design levels, right? People who go into Maya, 3D Studio Max, or a proprietary program, and they make a level in a first-person shooter. There are people who go beyond that and who create storyline and background for that level. Maybe even people whose abilities cross over into the artistic range, where they're creating the textures and the materials for those levels. And then you have people who write stories and who place content and quests in the game, or people who script content, the behaviors of bosses, raid mobs, things of that nature. When we talk about making content for Landmark, in effect, we're going to try to give you easy tools to do a lot of that stuff. The fact that people are going to have particular talents that lend themselves well, let's say, to building, or to the placement of population, how the community ends up shaking out, and how people collaborate to create the best content, I think that's where you're going to see people succeed. People who are able to marshal the power of, what we saw in the past. Well, how are you going to kill the dragon? Because you can't kill it alone. Okay, gather a group. Well, I'm sorry, you can't kill it in a group either. You need a group of groups. You need a guild, right? And that guild, it's a group of groups. It's going to require leadership. It's going to require face people, right? You're going to need recruiters. You're going to need organizers. And I'm sorry, but the warriors and the tanks don't understand these new encounters. You're going to need somebody to educate them. So you're going to need a warrior, you're going to need an officer in the guild who's the warrior officer, and he's responsible for making sure that all the tanks are well educated on the behavior of these monsters so that we don't continuously fail. Because we only have 3 nights a week to devote to this content, and we want to be leaders, right? We want to be the first people to kill a particular boss. So we're going to have to get organized. That same level of organization and basically that same philosophy is what we assume is going to be applied to the creation of content as all of that capability is surfaced to you guys.
I've actually. Okay. Is this a good segue into another question?
Well, I wanted to touch on that, not to drag us into the weeds, but as far as the landmark community is concerned, we have that 250 guild cap, which I know we have mulled over it. I've talked about it on previous shows, and my main question to you is, the community really didn't accept your guys' reasoning behind that cap. Could you maybe enlighten us a little bit more, give us more explanation why there is that 250 guild cap particularly in Landmark? Because I could see it being in EverQuest Next, certainly applicable there, but here in Landmark, where it's community driven, let us decide how we want to run things. Why have you decided to make that limit?
So I probably can't give you the legitimate answer that you're looking for because I wasn't personally involved in that decision. My belief is that there were some technical limitations that we're currently constrained by that led us to that decision. But as far as stuff like that is concerned, we're at a stage where you should definitely give us your feedback on things like that and say, hey, look, we can envision circumstances where a certain number or certain behavior that you've decided to enforce or a choice that you've made isn't going to work for us in the long term. You should remain vocal about that stuff. I mean, it's not just that we're talking about that stuff right now or that we're going to continue to do that. It's that there's a lot about those things that isn't necessarily set in stone. There are concepts and ideas where we are not necessarily taking a stand and saying, well, thou shalt not pass, right? The decision is made, never shall there be more than X number of materials in the game or more than a certain number of tiers. We're still in a more formative time, right? So continue to give us your feedback on that stuff. And while you're more than welcome to get up in arms about things that you don't like, obviously I can't stop you from doing that. Please understand that we'll be considering all of your feedback. It's not like it can never change, right? Not by any stretch of the imagination. At least not for us, right? There may be technical limitations. A good example, the number of materials that have existed in the game, in alpha. Well, there were technical limitations. If people came to me and said, hey, look, I can't effectively build because I don't have enough materials. Yeah, you're right. You can't effectively build because there aren't enough materials. There's a technical limitation. We're aware of it. Within the schedule, we'll be working to overcome it. And so that is what will happen in that situation, right? We'll continue to work to expand the number of materials that can be visible at any one point in time, for instance.
Did you have a question, Tima? Sorry.
Yeah, got one here from the listing. Loris asks, since the competitions have started, a lot of builds have been done with all different types of buildings. What do you want or need to see more of?
So the work that people have been doing in the competitions and in the workshops has been amazing. I wouldn't ask for more, right? People have been hopefully entertaining themselves and doing amazing stuff. What I think you'll see in the future is we'll be doing more small competitions. In fact, there's a small competition coming up fairly soon. We're going to be creating points of interest in underground ruins that are going to be placed down below the world in the caves. And we're going to have a small competition to create that stuff, right? And
It's going to be very good.
Awesome.
It's
Fantastic.
it's just the tip of the iceberg. Think about every semi-sentient and sentient race that exists in an EverQuest world. So the gnoll, the orc, right? The lizard man. We're going to want to have a competition and a workshop for every one of those races. We might have competitions and workshops for ancient eras, right? Let's have Steve come on to the show and tell you about the doll era, right? Now, there may be no doll left alive in Norath. They've died out, right? But that doesn't mean you can't find doll architecture, right? There could be dungeons that are largely in a doll style. There could be ice giant dungeons. So let's say the ice giants have died out. But the things that they created in the past stand to this very day. We need to have a competition where we establish the look and feel of the ice giants. And then there may be situations where we need to establish the styles of all the nautical architecture of the races that we've already done. So we go back and have a competition where we decide how the coastal towns of all the races are going to be brought into the game to make
Jeff,
the world.
do you know how excited we are to hear that?
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, literally, what
You
we're talking
didn't
about
answer the question.
just the tip. Right?
You didn't answer the question, Jeff.
Okay, so ask me.
He's wondering, what are you looking for that you haven't seen?
Oh, that I haven't seen. Well, I thought I did answer the question. There is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's how to phrase it differently. We've seen more from the players than we expected, right?
Okay.
We haven't just seen more than we wanted, right? There's been creativity, there's been execution and amazing stuff that people who were on day one planning for this product look at and they can't believe it. They're aghast. They're like, oh my God, that's a screenshot of our game. Where did you get this? Who did this?
We tweeted one of those, and Dave did a double take. He didn't, at first didn't realize it was from Landmark.
Yep, I see him every once in a while, and it's like,
Yep.
wow, this game is going to be amazing.
I got into a conversation with somebody else in the industry who doesn't work at SOE recently. And it wasn't like they were attacking user-generated content and player creations, but they kind of gave me one of these things, like, yeah, you and your UGC, what? Come on, are players really going to be able to pull it off? And I was like, are they going to be able to pull it off? Hold on. Opened up a screenshot, and I handed it to them, and I was like, and they were like, well, sure, an artist, a game designer. I'm like, no, not an artist or a game designer. A guy in Europe.
Yeah. And we've been studying for this our whole lives. We've been
It
playing
was-
just by playing games.
It was
Exactly.
Jinsan. It was Jinsan. I know it was.
Now,
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Yes.
I
Spoiler
have-
alert.
I'll be honest, I haven't talked to everyone who's out there building and said, hey, can you guys send me your resume? Because I want to know, based on your accomplishments in the game, what you may have ever done in games. Like, Tenma, I've talked to you, and you mentioned that you've done level design work in the past, right? I know a lot of people who work in the industry who got their start making levels in games as old as Duke Nukem, et cetera, et cetera. And it's certainly a great way to get your foot in the door. As students of games, players of massively multiplayer games, from Ultima Online all the way through World of Warcraft and every other iteration, a raid leader, a guild leader, an organizer, somebody who made it into 40-man content. One of the first 10 guilds to down Vox, back in the day. Whatever have you. The amount of knowledge that these students of gaming bring to the table, those are my designers. I can turn the camera to a room full of people who got their jobs, who fulfill those roles that they perform for us as game developers because they are students of gaming. It's where our expertise comes from. So to assume that player created content can't equal or exceed the content that's created by game developers, well, it's silly, because that's how we gained our skills. That's where it comes from.
That's awesome.
Jeff, I got a question for you. Do you guys have the bandwidth there at Sony to consume maybe 50% of the content that we're creating? I mean, by consuming, I mean go look at it, break it,
We
talk about it amongst yourselves.
we have the
We're
opportunity.
building a lot of stuff.
Right. I mean, to be honest with you, certain members of the team take the time to do that right now. Myself and Rosie particularly. I mean, we spend, I don't know what percentage of our week. I'm probably at 70% of my week spending time either addressing what's going to be delivered in the near future from a content standpoint, like player character races, how they look, and then the process of review and looking at the work that you guys are creating. Because right now, these are the formative days of the game that will ultimately be Landmark and then EverQuest Next. Having an understanding of what you guys are doing, what you enjoy doing, and how those tool sets work, how to surface a more powerful set of tools and abilities to the players to create content. If we don't scrutinize it, if we don't spend as much time as necessary to have a handle on it, then we'll lose control of it. We'll have no feedback with you guys, and we'll invariably head in directions that end up being like a dead end, right? You can well imagine trying to sit in a vacuum and deciding how tools, for instance, function, how the workflow of a selection tool, for instance, might be implemented. If we're not in tune with what you guys are doing, if we're not watching your tutorials, if we're not talking to you, if we're not learning your tutorials, for instance, and doing our own work, we'll become disconnected from the process. And then our perspectives will be useless. I mean, I've seen it happen in video game development in the past. A development team who's working on content gets too busy. There's too much work. We can't play the most recent raid. So when people say, hey, this raid is broken, this boss is unbeatable, this mechanic doesn't work, it doesn't integrate elegantly with the Holy Trinity, for instance. You know, this isn't fun. You guys need to revisit it. It's that sort of thing that happens when the developer is completely disconnected from the process.
Okay. I got.
You guys going to increase your? I'm sorry.
I got one more question to throw in here, and it's from DeJello. How many biomes are there planned and for designed so far?
So I don't have a number for you, but there are more biomes coming. So a couple of examples will be the underwater biome, so the ocean, right? So oceans and lake bottoms and things of that nature will be their own unique biome. There's also a deciduous forest biome coming. It's actually my favorite biome so far, my favorite outdoor biome. Think about it like an autumnal forest with birch trees. It's freaking amazing. When you guys see it, you're going to love it. And you should see it for open beta.
I saw the concepts you were y'all had put out not too long ago about the deciduous forest. I think it was at SOE Live.
Yeah.
And that was beautiful.
You'll see more biomes. My guess is, I shouldn't say my guess, my prediction is that as we continue to iterate on EverQuest Next, as we create the races, as we get deeper into EQ Next development, every time we need to create a new biome to support EQ Next, then the possibility of that showing up in Landmark arises.
All right, let me ask you a question. Order of operations seems to be a huge factor when building in Landmark. I know Temma knows that. You know,
Yep.
how you do things, how you piece things together. Can you tell us, does that concept also apply to the actual development of Landmark the game?
It does. You know, pretty much every aspect of game development is an order of operations that you or your team is comfortable with, right? You can approach things in a bunch of different ways, right? It doesn't always have to be one way or the highway, but you do, to be successful, you have to establish a process and you have to follow it. If you got 3 people on a team and they're following 2 different orders of operations, you're going to end up with problems. right? So having somebody to manage that or to mentor the process is hugely important, right? You know, whether it's creating paper design documents that will end up being shipped to an engineering team to create features for a game, or whether it's you know, going forward in Landmark, creating a dungeon and populating it with monsters.
Hell
There's
yeah. I'm ready to do that now.
I'm ready to play that.
Right?
seriously, there's going to need to be an order of operations, right? And there's going to need to be somebody who's more or less in charge of that process.
With Dave Georgeson stating that his goal is to make Landmark the first virtual reality world and the desire to create deep immersion, will this include the support of full first-person perspective in Landmark?
Full first-person perspective, like
Melee combat from a first-person stance being viable.
that's a good question. Viable. I think that it's always going to be our desire to be more third-person focused for one particular reason. That situational awareness in the type of environment that we're creating in general, lends itself more to a third-person perspective. But that doesn't mean that we don't want the game to be playable from first person. So it's a matter of degrees, right? Because the question is kind of arbitrary. It's hard to know, like, if I knew a specific game that the person had in their mind as like, okay, this game is a perfect first-person experience, I could say, well, we're not going to get to that point, right? I think of things in terms of absolutes. So I can tell you what our intent is. Our intent is that we know you need to be aware of what goes on around you, and that's why the game is primarily a third-person game. But there's no desire to cut off first-person gameplay. It's just I don't think that you'll see a strong focus on it.
Okay. Will we be getting a voxel editor, and if so, can you talk about how that would work?
Well, I can talk about the sort of things that I could see a voxel editor doing, right? We can certainly have that conversation. So we know right now through some amazingly arcane operations, we talk about order of operations, right? Trying to create offset voxels.
50-step process.
Operations there that you have to follow, right? We understand now much more clearly how the voxel can behave in the engine, right? And I mean, I'll be honest with you, there have been times when we've seen behavior that you guys have discovered, and people have been like, that was never designed. It was unquestionably never designed. There was no awareness necessarily that the voxel could be made to behave in some of the ways that you guys have come up with.
And we kind of saw that with Roman vectors, that when they started going crazy and all the things that
the
were being
inverted
made.
voxels.
Yeah, we're super happy that you guys have come up with that. We've gone to fairly extreme efforts to make sure that what you guys have discovered hasn't been broken by our lack of understanding or changes that we have made. But I think ultimately, thinking about a cube in space and how we could easily edit that cube just like we edit the selection volume today, right? And that through those simple edits, you could get shapes that you're looking for. I mean, there are voxel data editors online. You can just jump right now into a web-based voxel editor, and you can push the vertices, and you can then generate a voxel shape from that editor in a fairly straightforward manner, right? We've seen them. Based on the capabilities in the game and those editors, I can readily envision the sort of tool that we would create that would allow you to edit voxels by hand, right?
Awesome.
It's not something that we can do immediately because we have all that other work that in general takes precedence. But the clear need for it, the ability to surface that to players, one of the things that we talked about, making things simple, right? making it so that you don't have to necessarily understand a 52-step process to reach a particular goal, to watch a 45-minute video to gain the understanding of how to create a certain voxel shape. It's our responsibility as a community and a development studio to make that as simple for people as humanly possible within the course of the game.
And that's quite a task. And I mean, the fact that you still only have 7 tools is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, we tried to be very scientific and very minimalist in how we put things together. You know, at first we just dealt with basic shapes that had very little behavior, and we saw that those didn't give us the sort of fidelity that we were looking for. So we added shapes. We've been minimalist because at our core we believed that it was possible to be creative with very small things, right? I remember a famous game design professor who was actually one of the co-authors of Dungeons and Dragons. One of the first things that you would learn in his class of game design, he would bring in sand, sticks, and rocks and say, welcome, students, to your first day of game design. Break up in groups of 4, take your sticks and your sand and your rocks and make some games. Why? Because 30,000 years ago, that's how games were made. And if you understand how to create entertainment out of sticks and rocks and sand, then you are taking your first step to being a game designer, right? It's that minimalist approach, understanding your foundation, where you come from, I think that helps, particularly something as ambitious as this project, be successful. So as you see it evolve, it'll evolve in that way, right? With an understanding of the foundation and the roots that it comes from, and we'll try a minimalist approach, right? We want a few number of tools. We want as few commands as necessary, right? And you'll see that content hopefully is more or less the same way.
So did we hear it here first that Landmark is indeed being made with sticks, sand, and rocks?
Confirmed.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because the very first at our desk were blocks, right? We got a blocks online, and we looked at the different block shapes and said, what do you think we can get by? Right? I think Rosie spent like $20 to have this guy custom make her a bunch of block shapes, and we literally sat at her desk stacking blocks and said,
you know, I'm cutting that, right?
Yeah.
I'm cutting that.
And then we went out and bought Legos, right? We stood around people's desks with Legos and said, how many of these pieces are too complex for our players, right? At what point in time is this too much for people?
That's awesome. And
I
think it's breaking it down.
I'm writing this.
Cool.
I'm writing this down. One down. Jeff said literally.
I got one more. any chance? Is there any likelihood we'll get dynamic water before closed beta ends?
You know, I can't say. That is a perfect question for Steve. I wouldn't want to commit anything on his behalf, right? I know that they're working on all that fun stuff. It's certainly on the list. It's more than just research, right? They're working actively on the support for that stuff in terrain, et cetera, et cetera. So I can't promise when it's going to happen, but I can promise you that we won't forget it.
How often do you guys see Miguel from Voxel Farm? You see him on daily, weekly?
We don't see him often enough because he's up in Montreal, but we're in communication with him constantly.
That's what I mean.
He's an awesome guy.
He's an amazing person. He's an extremely talented individual. It was a perfect marriage between his work and our project, because he had spent quite a bit of time thinking about some of the things that were very important to us and experimenting on that stuff. And he was very vocal and open with his community about those thoughts. So prior to establishing a business relationship with him, I was able to go to his blog and to go back through years of his communications with his fans and see what input he was taking and how he was responding to people and where his thoughts and ideas were going, and it matched perfectly with where we wanted to go.
That's awesome.
And it was like reading somebody's resume that was almost written for the job that you had open. It was just perfect.
That's awesome. Let me ask you, in recent weeks, the new landmark reward items have been soul-bound instead of tradable. Does that change reflect your long-term intent for unique items and rewards?
No, I don't think it does. I think in general, our desire, our philosophy at the highest level is for something like a reward or any item that you obtain in the game to remain valuable to you to the greatest extent possible. So whether the item can be traded amongst your own players, whether it can be traded for value to other people, it will remain highly desirable to us. The only situation where we'll have to make compromises there will be, we obviously can't create an in-game economy where the items of value are able to trickle down to everyone throughout all eternity, right? Where you eventually end up with an economy of things that have dropped over the course of the last 15 years, and they're all valueless because there are so many of them that everyone who wants one can have one. So there obviously game design limits there, but if you have a reward or something great, we want it to remain very useful to you throughout the course of your career, to the greatest extent we can pull off.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Tema.
I got another question. Throwing this out there. This is from Z. Everybody knows Z, right?
Yep.
All right. Says, please ask about how committed they are to being genre agnostic, so we can start seeing props mats other than fantasy ones.
We are hugely committed to being genre agnostic. I apologize to those people who are, let's say, like Z, thinking primarily about sci-fi, because we have work, in this case, of a fantasy nature, that being EverQuest Next, that consumes at least a portion of our focus and attention. That does not mean that science fiction and other like modern genres, et cetera, are unimportant to us. We will have to continue to focus on that stuff and to support it. We want to have a competition for sci-fi stuff in the near future. Hugely important.
Awesome. Okay, Jeff, I have a bunch of bug-related questions, and I was hoping to just burn through them really quick, kind of like a speed round. Would you be up for that? Where I could just run through the question, yes, no kind of deal.
I'm not. I can tell you, for the last 2 weeks, I'm not up on bugs because I had my head buried in something else.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I can save them for later on, send them around, that kind of stuff. But
probably best.
okay, yeah, the community's been coming together trying to get a list of, bugs that are really, or issues that are really kind of causing players, in some cases, to actually stop playing the game and that kind of thing, where it just annoys them. There's been a lot of death issues. People, when they load in and they die, that's a big one. I think another big one that I definitely just want to let you know about is the vectoring across screens from graphical issues. I think it's like the tree props give you green lines. So that's definitely been causing issues. People underground getting popped up above ground when they're trying to build in their underground stuff. Definitely an issue for them as well. I just wanted to quickly bring that up. And then I have a technical question about the SLI optimization. The LaForge guy said it hasn't really had a big impact on gameplay. And is that something that could possibly be solved by the NVIDIA drivers or on that side? Or is that something we're waiting for on your end?
It could be solved with further iterations of NVIDIA drivers. It's a question that would be best directed to Steve Klug, because Steve actually worked on the SLI integration. I got the benefit of working with Steve and hearing his description of the performance increases that we would see, but I don't actually have an SLI set up. My machine at home isn't SLI. nor is my machine here, so I don't have any personal feedback to give about how performant it became when we implemented. So Steve would be the one to give you specifics.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Temma or George, do you guys have any final questions, or anybody out there in the community with some final questions for Jeff? Because we're hitting that hour mark about now.
Wow, time flies.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this next one to George, then I'll take the next one after that.
Well, I'll pass.
Attack! How the heck? All right. Okay. I'm going to go to a viewer question instead of one of my own because I think this is a really good one. This was by Murin at Play. Their Aussie friend asked, I'd like to know about how they plan to add new races to EverQuest next and if they will be able to help design stuff for them in Landmark before they get added.
So, if he means the races that we plan on putting in EverQuest Next today, let's say the Karens, right, so on and so forth. If the players will have the opportunity to weigh in on that stuff as we move forward, yes. Our desire is for every race, and not just races, but variations on the theme, right? Take humans, for instance, right? The different types of human settlements all have different themes, and we want the players to be engaged on all of that stuff. Because the architecture and the lore of a particular race kind of go together. Think about the wearables of a race. Like, what does a Karen wear? The lore and the architecture that's relevant to the Karens also has some bearing on how they would dress, right? So all of the stuff that we do in the workshop, those interactions become important and they resonate throughout the creation of the race. Rosie and I are working really hard right now on a number of the player character races, looking at their individual appearances. And in the middle of that process, we realized as we started roughing out some of the wearables that we really needed to kind of take a step back and think about the ramifications of like the work that had been done in the Karen workshop and how that was going to reflect on their attire, right? The Karen street clothes, for instance.
I think basically what they meant was like post-launch, like when new races get added,
Absolutely.
that sort of iteration of, being like, okay, guys, we got this plan for like a new race and y'all help us develop them.
Yeah.
Help us design that sort of thing. And I was wondering if that is probably what I think they're talking about. So
think about this as a learning process for everybody. So when we started developing the game, we had ideas about how this was all going to go down. We had goals. Now we're putting those into practice, right? And we're learning. We personally are learning how to go about it. You guys are learning as well. We're going to continue that process, but we're definitely going to be collaborative about it. So things like the first EQ Next expansion, expect it to be a refinement of what we are learning how to do right now, right? The workshops, the competitions, those interactions, the feedback loops that we create so that we can continue to work collaboratively and successfully together as developer and community. All of that effort and all that knowledge will go into what we do going forward. So as we make the process better, as our races end up being cooler, more refined, as we work better as a developer and community to create that stuff, that's what we'll be doing going forward. So when vampires go in, you guys
Sparkling vampires.
when sparkle vampires are added to the game because
Yes.
of overwhelming player desire. So on and so forth.
So,
I'm still waiting on, the Tema race where they just run around with bald heads.
oh God. There'll be a mob.
Jeff,
We're gonna
I got
kill
a
them.
question about props for you. There's so many great props that have been released in EQ1 and EQ2. Is there any chance any of those will make their way to Landmark?
So
How are the models compatible?
I I think that in general, the style of the models aren't, certainly the style of the materials aren't compatible. So it's possible at some point in time in the future that you may see some props reworked, but it's not on our agenda, right? In general, we've tried to stay away from repurposing assets from one game to the next. It's not like we aren't all one big happy family. I mean, Dave is the franchise director over EverQuest. So if there was a prop in EverQuest that Dave saw and thought that we really needed in Landmark, he'd either have it pulled over or he'd have somebody remake it. But it hasn't been really high on our list to do anything like that.
So I think we pretty much totally took up a ton of your time, but if you want to stick around, we're going to be doing some more stuff with Landmark Explorer. We're going to go through a couple builds, but I just have one final question for you, Jeff.
Sure.
What upcoming features in Landmark are you personally most excited about showing off to the community?
So for me, it's about
No spoiler alerts. Spoiler alerts.
it's it's closing the core gameplay loop and getting player versus environment in the game, right? The landscape of the game changes entirely when there's a sense of danger when you're moving through the world, right? Like, hey, well, I can't go to a tier 5 zone because I'm going to get killed, right? I can't dig that deep because I know what happens. I'm going to die, right? I'm afraid of a certain kind of monster because I don't have weapons that are good enough to kill it. That's what I'm looking for.
Now we heard there's some new monsters coming that we haven't heard of yet.
I want to
Give
battle
us a
Dave's
little
hair.
something, a little something.
You know, it's funny because in general, we've been cool with hitting stuff. There are some monsters coming that we're not, we agreed that we weren't going to talk about.
Okay.
So they're,
Well, is it okay? I know we saw 2 at SOE Live.
yeah.
Can you give us a number of how many were not showed? Rough estimate.
There were several monsters that were not shown. So
Awesome. But we did see that big rock dude that smashed the house. I'm not sure if that was the EverQuest next thing, but I wanted to see him.
some of my favorite monsters you guys haven't seen yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Really
Yeah,
cool stuff.
I didn't think about the wisp. Yeah, the wisp or the third one.
Yeah, there's a couple
But-
plants. There was the scorpion
but,
plant. There was the chomper, the wisp. 3 wisps, I think.
Yeah.
And then there was the house smasher. So that's 4.
Which that might, we don't know about that one
So,
yet.
so that's,
People would be
so
happy about
that's
that.
4. So there's several, and I'm going to assume like maybe another 4 as the several number.
There are more monsters than that.
Good.
There you
See?
go.
There you go. That's an answer.
And some really,
All right.
some really cool armor and weapons coming too.
I got a question. This has been asked several times, and I know I've seen it in chat tonight. Weapons as props,
Thank you.
We are aware. Yes, we are aware.
because these guys, where they at? They're over there. Those guys there, they're gonna kill people if they don't get them soon.
Yes, I was
Like-
an avid Star Wars Galaxies player. Avid Galaxies player.
Yes.
So I had, when the day the server went down, I had a collection of one of every weapon available in the game, with 2 exceptions, on the wall in my Mustafar house. So I totally understand where you guys are coming from. I'm the ultimate trophy collector. I wanted like one of every item in the game so that I could place it on my wall. Every suit of armor, you name it.
And that just haunts you at night, doesn't it? That you didn't get those 2.
I have one more thing, and I know this is probably on some people's minds. When will the players be able, well, if that is going to be able to be done, where we could create things in Blender to import? How far along in the development process before we see that ability to be able to do? So we can bring that into the game as
It would
template
be,
props type stuff.
it'd be another excellent question for Steve, because Steve is more in tune with what the core tech group is working on. I haven't gotten an update recently on the status of that particular piece, but I know that they were working on it. So
Awesome.
I don't have a date for you, but they were working on it for Landmark.
Awesome.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, Jeff. Well, thank you again so much for joining us. George, do you have anything to plug? Because you do the Morning Brew. I don't know. Have you seen his show, Jeff? Because you should really check it out. It's freaking awesome.
I haven't seen that one. I'll start following it and picking it
Yeah.
up.
My first reaction was when Jeff walked in the room was, oh crap, there's that Butler guy. He's going to steal someone's ride on Sci-Fi Bay. We just don't know whose it's going to be yet.
Dude, I want to be able to put an engine in a voxel built ship and move it.
Yes. Yes.
We-
Definitely.
I'm warning everybody about you constantly.
The guy with the
Expect your
Viper.
ride to be gone, man. You'll know Butler's in the house.
Oh, I didn't ask you. I saw that picture of you playing around with the VR.
Yep.
And what do you think of it inside Landmark?
So I think it would be awesome inside Landmark. I'm hugely interested in VR and AR, right? I'll speak for myself personally as a gamer. One of the things about the whole VR thing that I'm looking for solutions to is the enclosed headset. Think about it. Like, how much time you guys spend gaming? Go grab a motorcycle helmet and paint the inside of it black. Where's your soda? You don't know. You're blind to the outside world when you put those things on your head. It's not a very gamer-friendly thing. I'm really hoping that someone will perfect like a transparent OLED. So you have something like a welder's mask or a face shield that works like a curved TV screen, basically like a giant set of Google glasses, where you can see through it, where when I go to reach for my drink or when my cell phone rings, I can just reach over to it and pick it up, where I'm not fumbling around my desk because I have a helmet on that I can't see out of.
That's an incredible observation.
That welding mask idea would kind of be perfect, where it will fade in and out depending on
That's
like
what I'm
arm movement, like certain
Exactly.
arm
Or
movements or
maybe
something.
cameras on the front that would
That's the thing,
you
right?
could do it.
You'd want it to head track, and you would want something like a camera on the front, particularly if it was intended to be AR related, right? I mean, you can go out on the internet and you can already see things like the Meta Glass, right? And when in the video of the Meta Glass, the guy puts the Meta Glasses on and he walks up and he starts sculpting a vase, right, with his hands, and he's using the Meta Glass and the camera in front of the Meta Glass and the motion to manipulate an object in augmented reality, right?
Kind
That's-
of like clay, treating
Exactly.
it like clay, and you can
That's awesome.
Exactly.
push
That-
in the top of it.
Yeah, you want to talk about a voxel editor. Imagine what it would be like to flip on a set of glasses and
Pull the vertices with your hands.
Vertices.
right down on the table in front of you and just push and pull the vertices until you have what you wanted, and then you click set. You go save, and then put it in the game. That's the stuff that I'm looking forward to, right? And there's people
Hey,
working.
Tara has a new name for you, Lowmore Man.
Yes.
That's what I love. That's what I love about you guys. You're not afraid to incorporate other people's technology into your game. I think that's really the new way to look at
That's
things.
core for success.
Yeah.
in this,
The
in this
hard
market.
part is
Ultimately, creating successful games, particularly those games that are innovative. It's all about understanding the potential for how the elements of gameplay could be put together. EverQuest is a spectacular example, right? How many people played MUDs? Crap tons of people played MUDs, right? How many people played games that were first or third person perspective, right? How many people played SSI, SSI Dungeons and Dragons games, right? And how many people were looking for some sort of iteration of Dungeons and Dragons that they could play with their friends, where they didn't have to get everyone together at a table like this every Friday night. Because yeah, you just got married and your wife won't let you go, right? Or
White background, you know about it.
left for college. That my dungeon master just left for college. Now we can't play anymore, right? So
It's
that's why we have massively multiplayer games now, right? That's why you can log on online and play Dungeons and Dragons with your friends. So it's all about thinking about, not only where we're coming from, but where technology and this potential is going, right? Games like Artemis, where you sit around with an iPad and there's a big screen TV and you fly around in a starship, right? That's an idea that we had when we were working on an old design document back in 1999. So you gotta think about that stuff and what's coming in the future.
Definitely.
So AR, VR, absolutely for Landmark and EQ Next, and the games that come after them. We're thinking about all that stuff.
I know Sony's got like the VR set that's coming out, and then we have the Oculus Rift or the Morpheus, something like that.
Certainly,
I'm kind of a little loopy on the terms here, but I know there's like multiple developers have different systems and stuff like that. Do you think they will be set up to where it will accept more than one type of VR system, or is it going to be okay? Well, we can't seem to get this right. Let's just stick with this one.
my guess is that VR and AR systems they're going to be marketed in much a similar way to monitors, right? They're, in my opinion, going to be less gameplay peripheral and actual core device, like display device. So if you think about them as a replacement for your display, then you're going to have to think about them in terms of standardization, because it's, as soon as we have a really successful one, a bunch of imitators are going to come out. If they're not standardized, then developers aren't going to be able to develop for them, right? Because then when the burden falls on the developer to support every one of, let's say, 5 different virtual reality displays and how they work, and whether they detect your hands, so on and so forth, right? Standardization is going to be hugely important. I mean, I can tell you, if you guys have ever read the book Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, in Ready Player One, they have basically a set of gloves that you put on, and you use those gloves to interact with the virtual world, right? Dude, there are people working on those gloves.
Nintendo, the original
Power glove.
the Power Glove. That was like old school version of that.
Yeah, well, people are they're working on it so that we can log into a virtual reality game. And when I reach my hand out to shake your hand in the game, and I grasp your hand, you feel it through the glove.
Wow.
Right? All those interactions function. Terry, I got to take off.
All right,
Okay.
Jeff. Again, I thank you for going over. You stayed like well past
Oh,
plans.
we
So
got started late. The people need
Take you all to hell,
Terry,
Terry.
what's up?
Take you all to
Stealing.
hell.
All right, take care. It was
Thanks,
awesome. It was an
yeah.
absolute pleasure. I
been
can't
great.
thank you enough. You are the man.
Not at all. We'll do it again for sure.
Awesome.
Thanks.
All right, guys. So that was Jeff Butler, creative director over at SOE. So we're about to wrap up here. Let me move his camera so we. There we go. Okay, guys. So we went a little bit over our normal time, so we're probably going to wrap up stuff. Temma, what do you got going on this week?
I'm doing job interviews this week, so haven't been able to stream as much as I like, but I promised you I'd be up here. So
Really appreciate that.
my next stream will most likely be Friday night and Saturday-ish.
Okay, and Saturday night, that's the Saturday night community build, right? So we can definitely look forward to that. Colossus hosts that, or Temma hosts that every week. So definitely look forward to that. And Gio, what do you got going on? You got the morning brew in the morning.
Yeah, Morning Brew returns tomorrow, man. We'll be
Okay,
jamming.
awesome.
jump in, join us. Let's go spill some coffee and laugh at each other. It's a good time, man. It was a busy week. We had elections yesterday. Monday was a school work day, so we took the kids down to the Smithsonian. So it was fun. But we're back, man. We'll be live tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock sharp.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Very cool. So, everyone, I want to thank everyone in chat for the great questions for Jeff. And like he said, he's going to be back again. So, this is a brand new weekly show. If you enjoyed it, make sure you follow, make sure you tweet out, all that kind of great stuff. And as always, guys, don't forget, keep up on your upkeep.